of all, this packet now includes the conics, so all the way at the end, it's literally 56 pages, okay? It's a lot of pages. I know it seems overwhelming, but there's also a lot of multiple choice in here. For number 4, when you see zeros, this one has a hole in it. You're not going to have one with a hole in it, but that's why one of the answers gets canceled out. What happens in the top is you would factor it, and in the bottom, the 2 cancels, the x plus 2 cancels, which means the negative 2 goes away, and all you have is positive 2. That's why that's happening. But you won't have a hole on the midterm, on the final, so you don't have to worry about that one. So 8, your goal here would be to use the one-to-one property. So I want them to be the same base. To move 6 to the top, I would have a negative exponent. And then I'd get 6 to the negative x. 216, if you don't know what it is, right? 2 goes in here 108 times. Actually, I would do 6, not 2, because I'm trying to break it down into 6s. So 6 goes in there. 216 divided by 6 would be 36 times, and then 36 breaks down into two sixes. So that tells you that 216 is 6 to the third. And then you'd say your exponents equal to each other, and negative x equals 3, so x equals negative 3. You can also work backwards with these. Like if you're stuck, because it's multiple choice, you can take those numbers and plug them back in. I would know I need to move it, which means it's got to be negative, and that rules out A, C, and E. And then the question is 6 to the third, 216, or 6 to the fourth, 216. So you could also have worked backwards from there. All right, so 17, we're condensing. There's a minus and a plus. Remember, minus means division, plus means multiplication. So only the one with the minus goes to the bottom. And knowing just that, I know y to the 6 goes to the bottom. You could literally eliminate all of them, because this is the only one that has y and the 6 to the bottom. So use that for help with time. But all the way through, I would bump the 6 back, so I'd get log of x minus log y to the 6 plus log z to the third. And then the 2 that are positive are going to stay in my numerator, so 1 log x. And because it's addition, it becomes multiplication, so x z to the third goes in your numerator, and the denominator, the only one that's got the minus in front of it, is y to the 6, so it's e. Okay, now we're condensing, and there's an actual value there. The minus means division, but I'm going to condense first. So log 4, 20 over 5, because subtraction means division, becomes log base 4 of 4. And then because the base and the big number are the same, this is 1. 4 to the first power would give you 4. Are the same. Yeah, and if you don't see it, like log of 4, base 4 of 4 equals x, convert it, 4 to the x would equal 4. And that's really 4 to the first. I would say this about about 21. You won't have like the approximation, which means the left side, these should be different. Like they would all be different ones, because you're not going to have a calculator. So I would divide by 3 here, and I'd get 3x equals 14. And then it would be ln of 3 to the x equals ln of 14. The x bumps to the front. And then I would just divide by ln of 3. So that would be the answer you'd be looking for in your multiple choice. It happens multiple times here because of the approximation, but you won't have the calculator. So it would just be one of those. Same thing with 22. 22, I want to solve for the e, so I'd get e to the x equals 24, and then I would ln both sides, ln of e cancels, and x equals ln 24. And then from your answer choices, they all wouldn't be ln 24 because you wouldn't have then the calculator to get to the next spot. One of them would be ln 24. Your area, arc length is not on your test if you want to cross out 26. So it says state the quadrant in which theta lies if tan is less than 0 and secant, or cosecant, sorry, is less than 0. So really what this means is you want tan to be negative and cosecant to be negative, which means sine has to have the same sign. So sine has to be negative. So this is where your all students take calculus come into play. First, look at the tangent negative. So tangent is negative in the second and the fourth quadrant. And then you also need sine to be negative. Sine is negative in the third and the fourth quadrant. So the only place where they both happen is the fourth quadrant. All right, 32 says the points on the terminal side determine the exact values of the three trig functions, sine, cosine, tangent. So it's 4, 3. That means your x is 4, so you're going to move to the right 4. And your y is 3, so you're going to move up 3. Then you want to close it in, making it its right triangle. And theta goes in the corner between the radius and the x-axis. 3, 4, 5 is a triple, so that will save you some time. If you don't remember it, then you do 3 squared plus 4 squared equals 5 equals x squared, and you'd still get that side.
I know how to do this one, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Sure. All right, so 37, the goal here, well, it even says factor, and then use the fundamental identities. So they both have a cotangent squared. If I take that out, cotangent squared would be times 1 minus cosine squared. And then 1 minus cosine squared would go to sine squared plus cosine squared equals 1. 1 minus cosine squared is sine squared. So I'd get cotangent squared times sine squared. And then I'd look at my answer choices and see if they're there. It's not there, so that means I can keep going. Cotangent is the same thing as cosine squared over sine squared times sine squared. And then the sine squareds cancel, and all that's left is cosine squared. So definitely use your answers to your advantage. Like if you get halfway and you're like, am I done? Check and see if that answer's there.
We're going to have like a T with those equations, right?
You get this, yeah, that reference sheet that has the box. The blue box, the unit circle, and the conics stuff. It's on the review assignment. I mean, on the full packet assignment. It's D, is that what? Okay, so tan squared, it says multiply, which means you're going to expand and FOIL this out. Tan x plus 1 times tan x plus 1. When you FOIL it out, you get tan squared plus, of x, plus tan of x, plus tan of x plus 1. So tan squared x plus 2, tan x plus 1. Yes. Because this is also secant. Yeah. Tan squared. So this is secant. Oh, look at the question. I'm so glad this happened. Not equivalent. Right? So this one would be secant squared x plus 2 tan, and that's that one. And then this would be if you replace tangent. So like if you actually worked this one out, 1 plus 2 sine x cosine x. I bet if you work that one out, sine cosine, you would have to distribute secant squared x plus 2 sine x cosine x times secant squared x sine cosine 1 over cosine squared. One of these cancels. Secant squared x plus 2 times sine over cosine is tan. And that's still that one, so that's the equivalent there. It's not this bad. Like, I think your verifying ones are relatively easy.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think there's a not one on there, if I remember correctly. But just be really careful and make sure you read your instructions. That's why it's that way. So if you FOIL this guy out, it's the difference of two squares with 1 minus sine squared theta. And then if sine squared plus cosine squared equals 1, 1 minus sine squared would equal cosine squared. This is cosine squared. That, to me, is way more on level. All right, so this one says, which of the following is equivalent to 3 sine squared? Take out the 3 sine squared, and I end up with 1 minus sine squared. And then 1 minus sine squared is cosine squared. That, oh, they rewrote it. So then they replace, like if you look at all your answers, they all just have cosine, which means I have to replace sine. So 3 sine squared would equal 1 minus cosine squared. And then this gets distributed. So 3 cosine squared minus cosine to the 4th. Oops. Which is this one. You're definitely going to have the replacements and with the Pythagorean identities. I don't know if there's any that makes you do it twice. I took this a couple weeks ago, so trying to remember that brain. I don't think they're that bad. Yeah, I mean, I feel like 41 is kind of fair game. I think it's an hour. So I think it's, your A period is normal. So you have to give them a like denominator. This one's going to have to multiply by the other denominator and this by its other denominator. So this becomes 1 plus 2 sine theta plus sine squared theta when you FOIL out 1 plus sine times 1 plus sine plus cosine squared over cosine times 1 plus sine. I'm going to lose the thetas, but just remember that they're there. This is 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. And then you can take out the 2. And this is cosine, 1 plus sine. And then your 1 plus sines cancel. 2 over cosine is the same thing as 2 times secant. You're welcome.